how much CPF can I use to pay for my home? You see, in the previous video, we talked about the CPF basic retirement sum. And a big part of it is actually on housing because that housing should provide you up till the age of 95. Therefore, you really need to know how much can you actually use because CPF is not like a blank check. It doesn't mean that you have this amount in CPF, then you can take it 100% to pay for your housing. And if you don't understand these rules and the terms and conditions, by the time you get your keys to pay for housing, you may be in for a rude awakening because you are scrambling around trying to raise cash just because you underestimated how much cash you need to top up the shortfall. So in this video, I'll break down how much CPF you can use to pay your first and maybe your second property, how lease duration will affect CPF usage, and whether you really need to keep $20,000 in your CPF OA. And if you want to join a community of like-minded individuals to talk about CPF and retirement planning, join us at over 21,000 members in the Honey Money SG Telegram group for free. Let's start with the basics. Your CPF OA account can be used for the following: property down payment, which is also known as the deposit, monthly housing loan repayments, also known as the mortgage, and also legal fees and stamp duties. But here is where it gets tricky because your CPF usage will depend on: number one, the type of property, whether they are direct from HDB or from the resale market; number two, the type of loan, whether it is a bank loan or a HDB loan; number three is the age of the property or the remaining lease of the property; and number four, whether you have set aside the basic retirement sum, BRS. So in this scenario, let's say you are buying your first home and you want to use CPF going for a HDB loan. You may use all your CPF for the down payment as well as the monthly mortgage repayments. And yes, in the past, people used to wipe out their entire CPF OA just to pay for the housing down payment. But as of the current rule, you can keep and retain $20,000 in your CPF OA. You don't have to wipe it to zero. And the reason to do this is because CPF OA gives you 2.5% interest and CPF also gives you additional 1% interest for the first $60,000 of combined balances up to $20,000 in the CPF OA. So some of you may just want to keep it to enjoy the additional interest, or some of you just want to keep the $20,000 as a buffer, as a base. It's really your own call and optional. And maybe some of you need to keep that $20,000 in the CPF OA because that is the requirement before you can invest your CPF OA in other things like ETFs, stocks, and unit trusts. And my choice of this is definitely POEMS Cash Plus because I will show you why I myself use POEMS Cash Plus to invest my CPF. I have some good news if you're new to POEMS because you don't want to miss this welcome rewards. And here is the step-by-step guide. Click on my exclusive link to open a Cash Plus account, opt into Smart Park, and log in to POEMS Mobile 3 app to unlock $0 US commission for 30 days, 0% sales charge on unit trusts, and free real-time market data. Now on the funding side, there are 3 tiers of fund rewards. If you fund 1,000 Singapore dollars within 14 days and hold it for 30 days, you get 10 Singapore dollars of stock coupon. Fund 5,000 Singapore dollars and you get 100 Singapore dollars worth of stock coupons. And at the highest tier of 20,000 Singapore dollars, you can get $250 worth of stock coupons. Your initial capital can still be used to buy stocks. Just don't withdraw or transfer it during the holding period. Furthermore, there are weekly gift drops every Tuesday, where the first 50 new customers each week get a $50 US stock coupon for a featured US stocks such as Microsoft, Nvidia, or Google. With a different counter every week, remember to log in, activate the coupon, and place your trade properly. There is also a Fun and Prosper reward from 23rd March onwards. If you top up fresh funds, you get up to 100 Singapore dollars of stock coupons subject to terms and conditions. Just remember, coupons are one-time use, they expire in 30 days, and they apply to your first eligible trade after activation. Now take note that all trades must be online cash trades on SG or US markets with a minimum of 100 Singapore dollars or 100 US dollars per coupon. To be clear, this promotion is for new customers to POEMS Cash Plus account only. Terms and conditions apply, so use my link or scan the QR code right here to get your POEMS Cash Plus account today. But let's talk about a bank loan because it works fundamentally different from a HDB loan. Your CPF OA can only be used up to the valuation limit, which is the lower of the purchase price or the market valuation. For example, the purchase price is $520,000, but the market valuation is only $500,000. So there's a difference of $20,000, and this is known as the cash over valuation. So like I said, you can only use at the lower number. So your CPF can only be used up to $500,000. The remaining $20,000, you have to use cash to pay the shortfall. This is more for resale properties because they are based on the market price. Unlike new BTOs, they are already a fixed price by the Singapore HDB. Okay, so it's more for resale property. And you want to know something? Here's the key upgrade. If you have set aside the basic retirement sum, you can use up to 120% of the valuation limit for the home purchase, meaning you can use slightly more CPF for your housing repayments. So this is why hitting BRS is very important, especially when you want to pay for housing. And if you are wealthy enough, you want to buy a second property, then the terms and conditions will change a little bit. Before you can use your CPF to pay for the second property, you will need to set aside the basic retirement sum. And that is assuming your first home can cover you up to the age of 95. So the remaining lease must be adequate to hit the age of 95. But if the remaining lease of your first property cannot hit 95 years old, then you need to make sure you hit the full retirement sum. Then you can use the CPF. Doesn't mean you can use 100% of the CPF because it is still subjected to the same valuation limit and the rules. Okay, so be very careful. Also, one thing very important for housing is that the lease duration matters a lot. That means the age of the property. CPF board has put it very clearly that CPF cannot be used for payment if the remaining lease is less than 20 years. Then if the lease is between 20 to 94 years, there is a prorated usage of how much you can use the CPF according to this table right here. Because the housing will need to cover the youngest buyer up to the age of 95. So there's some restrictions. So according to this table, for example, the youngest buyer age is 35 and you're buying a flat of only 50 years left, which means that the remaining lease can only cover up to age 85. Then you can only use 75% of the CPF savings based on this table. Now I want to talk about the next thing, accrued interest, because this is something that many people forget when they sell the property. Any CPF use, including for grants, stamp duties and monthly installments, there will be an accrued interest applied on it. And this accrued interest must be returned to your CPF ordinary account. So let's say if you use $200,000 over a period of 10 years, there will be 10 years of CPF OA accrued interest added on. And all this must be refunded to your OA after the purchase, which is why some people may complain, why the cash proceeds so little even though they sold it at a profit. So you have to be aware that CPF is not free money, it is just a loan to yourself. You just borrow from the future you to the current you. But don't be too worried about accrued interest, especially if you have hit CPF full retirement sum. And also, what you have repaid as accrued interest to the OA, you can use it on your next property purchase. So don't worry too much about it. Just know that this is a feature. Don't be too afraid of it and get ready. So let's wrap up some key points that we discussed in this video. How much CPF can you use to pay for your housing? Number one, if this is your first home and you have a long lease, remaining life of the housing cover you up to age 95, then the CPF usage is very generous. You can use 100%. If you are taking the HDB loan, you can still retain $20,000 in your CPF OA. Whether you want to use it for interest or for buffer, it is your choice. But it's not like in the past where you need to wipe it out. If your remaining lease of housing doesn't cover you up to the age of 95, then the usage of CPF will be prorated. Very important. If your remaining lease is less than 20 years, then CPF cannot even be used. It has to be full cash payment. So don't buy too old properties. Then if you're buying a second property and you want to use your CPF, make sure you can at least hit the BRS or the FRS depending on the terms and conditions. That is if you want to use CPF. If you use cash, then there is no problem on this. Lastly, when you're selling the property, remember that you need to repay all the accrued interest, but don't be too worried about it. It can still be used for the next property, just that you have to be aware of the accrued interest amount. One final pro tip is that before buying your property, you should always go to the CPF housing calculator. It will show you how much CPF you can use based on your own statistics, your own data. Just have to input the numbers based on your background, and then it will show you how much CPF you can use. And if you're wondering what is this basic retirement sum all about, I don't even know this, then you can refer to my previous video right here.